new perspective. Reset. Joe.
Welcome, legends, to another episode of the Reset Podcast. I am your host, Joe Marroun. Before we get into it, massive shout out to our sponsors, World Gym Macquarie Park. If you are looking to get into shape, change your life around, fitness is the way to go. And what a community World Gym has out there at Macquarie Park. Hit them up. Hit up George. Amazing friend, and what a great operations he's got going on out there. Next Level Academy. We've got Joey. If you want to invest in your kids, Next Level is the place to be. Hit them up. We'll put down their socials in the tags below. Without further ado, I want to welcome our next special guest. Now, for this one, our next guest has had to jump on a plane and make his way out from the Gold Coast. It's an absolute honour to be sharing this room with him today. I reached out to him a year ago trying to make this happen, and we're finally here. This man is a proud father who's going through his own battle at the moment and has been alienated away from his daughter. I'd like to welcome Braiden Tonks.
Joey Marroun, thanks for having me, brother.
Braiden, thank you, bro. Thank you. I also forgot to mention that you got your own podcast.
I do, mate. I do. It's been going now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Just about to launch season 3. So yeah, some big things to come there, mate, for sure.
Amazing. And why did you start your own podcast?
You know, I've never really been asked that question like that, but to be completely honest, brother, it was around the time that Spanion was doing his podcast, you know, and I was, you know, Spanion was starting to really pop off, and yeah, man, I had an epiphany one day, like between my housemate and I said, I'm going to start a podcast. Why not, you know? And my first guest was shout out Bo Woods. He's a super lightweight Queensland champion boxer. He just won the Queensland title, so he was my first guest, and we're buddies from back in Tassie, and yeah, man, it just ventured off from there. And never did I think it'd turn into what it has, but yeah.
So it had nothing to do with what you're going through.
No,
it was just a general podcast.
Yeah, so my
content.
100%. My life was bliss back then, bro. It was, you know, it was. Obviously, I founded Tonksy Media Productions, doing a bit of videography work and, you know, some music film clips. And I moved to the Gold Coast and sort of branched off into doing things like, you know, birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, just as a videographer, photographer. And then, yeah, when I started the podcast, I sort of just branched it off that, you know, Tonksy Media Productions, Tonksy Media Podcast, you know, and I'm looking, nothing set in stone yet, but I'm looking at starting another branch of Tonksy Media Promotions. So
yeah, nice. Give us a bit of a background about yourself, Braiden. You know, I understand you're from Tassie.
A little old Tassie, mate. Yeah.
Originally, what was life like growing up? You know, what was the family dynamics like?
It was rough, bro. It was rough. You know, I am the eldest of 4. There's me, then a sister, then a brother, all 2 years between us. And then there was an 8-year gap between my little brother and my late little sister. So boy, girl. But yeah, it was sort of only us 3 elder ones at the beginning, you know, throughout, you know, my mum and dad's relationship. You know, they split up when I was 12. Leading up to that, you know, my old boy loves a beer, mate. He's not an alcoholic by all means, but loves a beer at the pub, a bit of a binge drinker, you know. But, you know, up until recently held a very heavy reputation as a violent man, a violent pub fighter, you know. He was feared by a lot of people, loved by a lot of people, but also hated by a lot of people, you know. So
yeah.
I guess I sort of grew up with being his eldest, his firstborn. I sort of grew up with that chip on my shoulder, you know. I was a chip off his shoulder sort of thing. Didn't know any different, you know. I mean, by 15, bro, I was drinking in pubs with him, banging on with blokes his age, you know, and dad's cheering me on, sort of thing. Back then I thought it was fucking cool as. I really did, you know, like, look at me. You know, I could put them together all right. And but I look back now, bro, and I think, like, fuck, I'd never sort of lead my child down that path, if that makes sense. Like,
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I copped a lot from people that I guess knew my dad. I was referred to as his son a lot, you know. So, like I said, there was a lot of people that loved him, a lot of people that hated him, and a lot of people that feared him. So, especially the people that hated him, you know, I sort of had to always look over my shoulder for those people, you know, just for being his son. But, you know, I usually start a podcast off talking about dad like that, but I don't really speak about the highs either, you know. He was a great dad, always looked after us financially, you know, had me on a dirt bike at the age of 2 years old, bro. Yeah. Always dressed in nice clothes and brand name clothes, and we always had motorbikes and this and that, you know. We were spoilt kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to around about the age of 12, you know, mum and dad had split up due to a bunch of domestic violence. And the best way I like to put it, you know, have you ever seen the movie Once Were Warriors?
Yeah.
There was those vibes to a T, bro. You know, like the parties, you know, us kids is in the bedroom hearing a ruckus going on through the night, waking up the next morning with fucking holes in the walls and blood sprayed here and there where dad had just cleaned the party up, you know. He was definitely had a few screws loose, man, back then, but he's you know, grown out of it now, I guess, and he's a grandfather, and, you know, he's got 7 grandkids now. Yeah, well. Three of them being mine. But yeah, going back to him and mum splitting up, you know, around the age of 12, obviously there was orders and stuff put on dad through domestic violence, and a period of time there where us 3 kids, by this stage there was my little sister was born, his youngest daughter. We're all to the same mum and dad. But yeah, there was orders put on him where we weren't allowed to see him for about a 12-month period, you know. And I look back now, dad, although he was the violent man he was the foundations. He was the one that kept our family knitted together, if that makes sense, you know. Obviously, you know, after they split up, my mum had only been with one guy before my dad, you know, and then got with my dad and had 4 kids. So she sort of, once he was out of the picture, she sort of went and lived her life, you know. I'm sure she regrets it, but, you know, there was most weekends we were left at home from Friday till Sunday. Well, mum would go out and party, and, you know, we weren't seeing dad. So, yeah, it was sort of like, I guess you could say at the time, felt like freedom, but I look back now, bro, and it was the beginning of the end, you know.
I want to make it clear, because we've had this conversation before. You know, everyone knows what my father meant to me, but I also have mentioned some trauma. We had the boys, the Lavulo brothers, Big Cash.
Great episode, brother.
Mate, that was special.
It was.
Right? And Cash said the same thing. Like, he said some hard truths about his father, but it's by no means bashing our dads, right? At the end of the day, that's all they knew.
That's right. Well, you know, on that topic there, mate, you know, just to, you know, I've only recently really spoke about this, and I'm currently writing my autobiography. You know, I'm hoping to have it published by the end of the year, but there's a full chapter on both my mum and my dad and their past traumas before I was born. So just to, a long story short, you know, my old man he grew up in a town by the name of New Norfolk, country town, northern Hobart, and, you know, a town known for breeding, you know, hard families. Like, it's a hard country town, you know, a lot of wood tree fallers and things like that, you know. And so my old man grew up, his mum, my nan, was an Indigenous lady, and you know, hard old lady too. She passed away when I was about 5. I have some vague memories of her, but just the stories that Dad's told me, she was a hard old woman, you know. And but yeah, so he was raised by her and his stepfather in this country town of near Norfolk, and between the ages of 5 and 7, the way Dad describes it to me, you know, their next door neighbours were having a domestic, you know, having a bit of an argument. And Dad and his older brother, my Uncle Rob, bless his soul, he's not with us anymore, but Dad's oldest brother, you know, they've jumped up on the fence to have a bit of a sticky beak, as kids do, while the next door neighbours are, you know, having a bit of a commotion. And he's watched the way Dad describes it, he's watched the fella walk out. It was an old brown Kingswood, and he's gone to the boot of it, opened up the boot, pulled out a shotgun and blew his head off right in front of me Dad at that age. You know, so that sort of gives you a bit of an idea why the old boy turned out a bit crooked, I guess. But, you know, there's obviously a lot more to that. But just to cut it short, my mum, you know, around the age of 16, quote me if I'm wrong, Mum, but she was about 16. You know, she's the middle of 3 daughters. So my real grandfather, never met the scumbag in my life. He done some horrendous things to Mum's oldest sister, my auntie, when she was 9 years old, and, you know, did a lot of jail time for it. Won't go too deep into that out of respect for my auntie, but you can sort of picture where I'm going with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so she was raised, those 3 girls were raised by their stepfather, a man by the name of Peter Cook. He was a police officer. But yeah, when Mum was around the age of 16, you know, she's come home one night and seen him sitting in the car in the driveway. Sort of just went up to the window to say, hey, Dad, she was with one of her friends, and yeah, he'd just done the same thing. So she witnessed the aftermath of him taking his own life and blowing his head off in the front seat of the car. So, you know, and that sort of gives you a bit of insight on where my parents come from, you know. And then, you know, my mum was only 19 and Dad was only 16 when I was born, you know, both very traumatised teenage kids, now with a little newborn human life, me, trying to raise and
navigate life
around what they'd already witnessed, you know.
I want to take you back to something you've mentioned in the introduction. You were going through your siblings and you stated our late younger sister. Do you mind touching on that?
Shout out Tali, my little sister. She's my world, you know. Definitely my favourite sibling. All of our favourite sibling, I reckon, just because I was 12 when she was born, you know.
Yeah.
Mate, around the ages, I was year 10 to about 16. She would have been about 4 years old. I remember by this stage, you know, my mum had gone off the rails when Mum and Dad split up and went very quickly, spiralled out of control into what happened to be a 20-year-long drug addiction herself, you know. So we'd gone from not seeing Dad at all to now we're with him full time because Mum's in jail. You know, and she ended up doing a good 8 or 9 laggings herself in jail throughout her 20 years, you know. Bad woman, but, you know, beautiful woman at the same time. But yeah, so when my little sister Tali was about 4 years old, I remember we were all with Dad, and Dad had a doctor's appointment one day at this complex in the suburb that we grew up in, Claremont Village. This little complex was called, and I sort of just waited across the road at this little park with my little sister. She was having a play on the park, you know, while Dad went into the doctor's surgery, and she had a fall. She slipped on a railing and landed on her stomach, and it didn't look like a bad fall. I still remember it clear as day, but her scream, I can still hear it. She screamed the whole fucking suburb down, you know. I was like, what's happened? Like, you know, and Dad's come out, you know. Long story short, she was taken to hospital, and it had triggered like they did, I forget what scans they are, but they did a scan on her, an ultrasound on her stomach, and found a tumour on her bladder. I forget the name of the type of tumour it was, but pretty quickly, I remember the prison had brought mum over from the jail to the hospital, and the doctors had taken mum and dad out into another room, and then us kids were just sitting in the room with my little sister while she's in the hospital bed, and mum and dad had walked back in, and first time I reckon I've ever seen me dad cry. You know, he's a big 6'2", 6'3", 130 kilo, tattooed bloke with a big beard, you know. Tough looking fella. I'd never seen him cry, man, and he'd walked back in sobbing his heart out, and mum and said, Tali's got cancer. Well, it was like I said, I was 16. I was, you know, old enough to take it in and know what was going on. And yeah, mate, I remember it was a Friday night. She was rushed on a little emergency aeroplane to Melbourne, to the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, where she ended up spending the next 2 years of her life fighting cancer. You know, she was, at that time, she made history in Australia for a child that age to receive the most amount of chemotherapy, radiation for her age. You know, and it was around the time of the Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd war, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember Kevin Rudd was passing through and he was the loser at that stage, I think, and he was passing through Melbourne and went into the hospital specifically just to see my little sister, to the ward, to her room, it made the front page of the Herald Sun and everything. And I remember because mum was looking at, so by this stage too, the jail had let mum out on compassionate grounds of some type to be over there with her little girl, you know. So mum's living over there at the Ronald McDonald house. Dad's back and forth from Tassie back, you know, to Melbourne. I'd just started an apprenticeship as a sheet metal worker, so I was solid in Tassie sort of thing on my own. And but yeah, I remember mum was looking at, she had a housing commission house that we grew up in the suburb of Claremont. We'd been there for 12, 14 years at that stage, and they were looking at taking it off her, you know. And I remember Kevin Rudd personally rang the Minister of Housing back in Tassie and said, you know, take this family under your wing. We have a very, very sick little girl over here. You make sure they keep that house, you know. So straight from Kevin Rudd's mouth, you know, shout out Mr. Rudd. He was very blessed that day, mate, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, yeah, just to continue on with that story, like she ended up spending 2 years over there. They shrunk the tumour down to the size it was operable on, and they got rid of it, as well as about a third of her bladder. And then she was put into remission, you know, and she beat cancer. So she always had a very, very special place in my heart, Tali, 100%.
So your sister's all well and good now?
Yeah, mate. She is the only child out of us 4 kids that has stayed on the straight and narrow, you know, never been an addict, never been in trouble with the police, or, you know. So yeah, she's
still in Tassie?
She's full-time with my old man.
Yeah.
You know, through those couple of years in Melbourne where she was sick, obviously my mum was still deep into a downward spiral on drugs, and you know, she there was times, you know, where mum missed appointments and stuff with due to hooking up with some guy over there and whatnot, and I can't really remember what had happened, but you know, it's stuck with my little sister forever. And ever since the age of, you know, 6, 7 years old, she's 21 now, she hasn't spoken a word to mum. They don't speak, you know, and it's heavy. It's very, very heavy on my mum. She holds a lot of guilt and shame and sorrow, I guess. But at the same time, my little sister, which I don't blame her either, you know, she's very stubborn, she says something and it sticks, you know, which that's my old man coming out now. But yeah, she's all well and good, mate. She works good. 3 jobs, you know. They took obviously all the radiation and everything around that area. sizzled all her little girl organs, so she'd never be able to have kids or, she'd never get a period or things like that. But she become a school teacher. She's just beautiful, beautiful soul,
All right. We'll cut from here, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, moving on. At what stage, Braiden, did you start seeing or feeling yourself get out of control?
Mate, right back from when Dad left. Well, as soon as Dad left, around the age of 12, 13, and so he'd left, and there was a period of time where we were week on, week off with him and Mum, and obviously Mum spiraled, went to jail, got out of jail, and then there was the order was put in place. So throughout that time where the order was put in place, where we weren't allowed to see Dad, I become the man of the house. Even at that age, like I said, I was a chip off the old boy's shoulder from day dot. I had a very short fuse, without having a big head or sounding cocky, I didn't give a fuck about anyone, bro. I was staunch from day dot, and especially when, like, my mum would bring a guy home or something like that, mate. Like, I remember the first one, he left with the fucking rock through his car window. Wow. So, but around those years, mate, 13, 14 years old, ecstasy was a big thing in Tassie. And I remember, bro, you go your mate halves in one and you'd be buckled for 48 hours. They were good pills back then. And, there was that. There was always the old school gear, like speed, GAC, whatever you want to call it. So we were pumping that, mate, before we were even old enough to get our learner's license, Always I smoked weed from the age of 12 years old, But I guess started to really spiral out of control, mate, would have been, I became a father at 19 years old. I was at that stage, I was halfway through an apprenticeship as a metal fabricator. My two elder daughters' mum, she was a hairdresser. We had our shit together, sort of thing. Always, had a bit of a crop growing in the background, and that was a bit of an income, on every couple of months, sort of thing. And had our shit together, become a father at 19, and then a father again at 21. Two beautiful daughters, Amali and Harlow. And like I said, around that stage 2 pingers, ecstasy was big. I was hitting the nightclubs, and very quickly became that guy that everybody knew with the pills. I remember, mate, it went from like in 50 to 100 a week to next thing you know, I'm going bloke halves in a couple of thousand a week, and 1,000 pingers in Tassie, bro. That's pretty big, and I was gobbling them down myself every weekend, but coming home with pockets full of cash in my pockets, and my excuse was like, look at the money I'm making, really, bro, I was just partying, just still a kid. But yeah, I wasn't until I was about the age of 23, I was a fully qualified tradesman by this stage. I'd, made a fair bit of money through just hustling with drugs and things like that, and had a few toys, boats and full drives, turboed cars and this and that, and dirt bikes. And I remember I come home from the clubs one night and just to this house party. It just so happened to be across the road from where I was living with my two elder daughters' mum at the time. And and we're sitting in the lounge room. It was early hours in the morning, and I've pulled out this glass pipe, and this, I had no idea. I'd like ice. We'd only ever heard of it on documentaries, or there was none of these warning signs like it's a home wrecker, it'll do this to you. It was none of that. It was the very beginning of this epidemic, and I remember they're passing the pipe around, and it come my turn, mate, and I didn't know what you had to do with it. I remember I just sucked on this thing and sucked all the fucking rocks back into my throat like an idiot, and everyone started laughing at me, and I think a mate ended up doing it for me, and little did I know that was going to be the next 10 years is pretty much a blur, bro. Like, on and off it over the next decade, it grabbed hold of me by the balls, bro, and took me with it Like, it was, it's an evil drug, that, mate. You know, within 6 months' time, I'd sold everything that I owned off, and I'd had a tick bill this long with the bloke across the road, and I'd been hiding it from the kid's mum, and she'd clicked on and come unstuck, and, you know, long story short, she took off with the kids, bro, when I was 23 years old. You know, I'd been with her for 7 years from the age of 16. You know, we'd moved out of home together and all that, and yeah, man, that was the first time I really, really experienced proper depression, you know.
Can I just ask you, Braiden, what is it about that drug that you probably know that you're spiraling, you know you're out of control, you know it needs to stop, but you can't stop?
You know what it is, bro? For me personally, this is my opinion and my experiences, is it is a coping mechanism. It's only ever come back into my life when I've experienced deep depression that I can't handle, and I have that, and it masks it. You know what I mean? Right up until my recent relapse, you know. Unfortunately, I'm only just going on, I think, 10 weeks sober off it again now. It was only a minor couple of months, you know, as we'll get into, when my little girl, and I'd split with my recent ex, you know, my little girl was taken away from me. I resorted back to it, you know, and like, there's been times over that 10-year period where I've gotten off it for three and a half years. I think my biggest clean time was, you know, and yeah, man, it's just always been my go-to when I can't handle heartache. It's one of those things that completely numbs you.
Yeah, but that's not the answer, Braiden.
Nah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I guess I'm unsure, Joey.
Yeah. This drug has taken some of my loved ones.
Same.
It's also swallowed up people that I know and love, where they're not on this earth.
Yep.
And
a very, very big percentage of Australia. Yeah, with the world, but as you know, Australia, brother.
It's just, I don't look, I haven't gone there. I've never touched it. But it blows my mind, that chokehold.
Unless you've been there, I guess I don't know what to say. It's just one of those things that it has it over you. It has that, and you know, it's not even a big hit when you first have it. It's the days ahead of you. You don't realise the days get shorter, the nights get longer. Do you know what I mean? And before you know it, you've been awake for a fucking week, and you're starting to see things, and you're starting to hallucinate, and you know, like psychosis. You know, drug-induced psychosis. I've seriously experienced that to its full. Like, brother, you know, I can't even. I start ramming on about stories about drug psychosis, mate, and I sound absolutely fried. You know, some of the experiences I've had whilst being drug-induced in psychosis, you know. Crazy. I thought about it before I come on this podcast, Joey. There's a story that this drug, only recently, you know, only about 3 months ago, when I was deep into it again, just before I cleaned myself up again, you know. I mean, as we'll touch on, you know, throughout my current situation, which I'm still very deep in the middle of, a very serious lawsuit, you know, mate, I had some fucking dark days, some dark nights, you know, and, you know, fuck it, I'll just say it how it is. There was this one night, you know, and this is, going back a little bit, you know, I ended up in jail. You know, I found faith in something while I was in jail. whether you want to call it God or whatever, something greater than us. You know, we all know that there's something greater. And for me, you know, I read the Bible and things like that in jail, and it resonated with me. You know, I seen something from it, whatever. But, you know, fast forward into my current situation, you know, there was a morning I woke up, you know, long story short, I'd split with my recent daughter's mum on pretty ugly terms, you know. She'd taken off with my daughter, and yeah, you know, we were still seeing each other, mate, like back and forth. And then, you know, there was a 2-week period, Joey, where I didn't see or hear a single thing from either of them, my ex or my daughter. Whereas I was speaking with her on video call every single night, saying good night to her. The nights she wasn't at home with me anyway, you know, and you know, her mother has suffered with alcoholism, our whole relationship, before I was even in the picture, you know. She struggled with it, sort of runs down both lines of her family, and you always try to help her like I did, but you know, the nastiness would come out in her while she was drunk, you know, and it eventually split us up. But long story short, there was a time there where, you know, we hadn't spoken for a couple of weeks. I was completely blocked on every platform. You know, there'd been a police protection order and stuff put in place at this stage, just through verbal stuff. Majority of it's just through messages and voice notes, not even in person, or, you know, just literally through a device. And yeah, so she had, and I knew from a father's intuition, you know, I knew something wasn't right within this 2 weeks. I knew that she was falling off again with the alcohol and the prescription medication and like Valium and things like that. And the last time I'd spoke to her, it was she'd ring me up and she was fucking legless, you know, and it was a video call, and she said, they took her. I was like, who the fuck took who? What are you on about? Like, and she hung the phone up on me. You know, so I've freaked out. I've gone and rang all my family. I rang all her family, told everybody, like, look, I think that she's talking about Darcy's been taken. Darcy's my daughter. So, and, you know, and then I got hold of her again a couple of hours later when she was absolutely buckled up on whatever she was on. And she just laughed at me and said, I was only joking. So I was like, you know what, fuck you. And I hung up on her, and then I blocked her. I said, you fucking put me through hell like that. I've just rung all our families freaking out about my daughter because I know the states you get yourself in, the neglection and things like that when you're drunk. And, you know, so I left it, mate. Like I said, it was about 2 weeks leading up to that, and then I left it for about 4 days. And I woke up one morning, Joey, and I don't know how to explain it, but I had this thing inside my stomach that said something is not right. You know, and I just, intuition, you know, and I'm very blessed to have a very strong intuition. I know my gut's never wrong, and I know how to read it, you know. And I got up this morning, and, you know, I'd bawled myself to sleep that night before, cried myself to sleep, and then woke up that morning, eyes all puffy, with this feeling in my guts, and I rang Mum. She said, what do I do, Mum? Like, I'm fucked. What do I do? She, you know, didn't really have much advice. I rang Dad back in Tassie. He was the same. He said, ball's in your court, boy. You know, he's always called me boy. And I thought, fuck it. I'm going to ring CPS, Child Protection Services, myself, and just to tell them that what had happened those few days ago, where I was pretty much tricked into thinking that my daughter had been taken, you know. Just to let them know that I was, you know, very worried about my daughter, and there should be at least a checkup. Mate, little did I know I was about to find out that they had my daughter in custody. She was in the supervision of a foster family for the last 4 days. So my gut, so that first phone call from the ex, where she said they'd took her, she was fucking being real weird. But then when she told me that a couple of hours later that she was only joking, she obviously realised that, fuck, she shouldn't have told me because everything was on her now, you know? Joey, I can't explain the feeling I felt when they told me that my little girl was with a foster family. I remember I just got out of bed, I was in my undies, and I rang, it was early in the morning, I rang this place, and when they told me, mate, you know, my little girl she was a spoilt little thing. She never slept in her own bed. She always slept with mum and dad, with both of us, or just with me, or just with her mum. You know, she was real cuddly, real clingy little thing, you know, and especially with all this stuff going on, she's been separated from her father. She's now experiencing being handballed back and forth between mum and dad. Mind you, she's only 2.5 years old now as we speak, and this shit's been going on since October last year. So, mate, the first thought, I thought, oh my God, she's with strangers. She is, I said to him, like, what's going, they said to me, oh, look, she's struggling to sleep and she won't eat. I dropped, Joey, no shit, I hit the floor, my legs went out from under me and I dropped, I hit the floor, I threw my phone across the lounge room and I just screamed at the top of my lungs like, fuck! You know, like I couldn't fathom it, you know, and then I called and called and called and called and called and called on every platform, the ex, you know, to try and find out what has happened, you know, and for that, I ended up getting a call back from CPS a couple of days later saying, like, look, we just want to inform you that your daughter's now back with her mother. Obviously, because of the orders that was put on me, I was unaware, mate. Like, I was unaware. They didn't even reach out to tell her biological father because I don't know whether it's what the ex, you know, my daughter's mother had fed them or what the police had fed them. You know, but yeah, I got a call from CPS to say, look, the case has been closed and your daughter is back with her mother. I was like, so what, I can see her? Then I said, look, as long as you follow your conditions on your order, and my daughter's not part of the order at all. It's just between my ex and I. And so, yeah, it was such a horrible, hard time, you know, through calling her that many times. So, yeah, little did I know. So the way my daughter had gotten back with her mother, from what I can put together, and, you know, that the ex had obviously had to breach me on some sort of grounds, along with go and get herself some professional help, psychiatrist, drug and alcohol counselling, you know, all that stuff to be able to get our daughter back so quickly. I didn't know that I'd been breached at this stage, but I reckon 24 hours went by and I was sitting, like I said, I relapsed, mate. After they'd hung up the phone from me, I relapsed. It was, like I said, it was like a coping mechanism for me. I think I probably would have done myself in if I didn't. I was so broken. I'd never in my life felt a level of heartache like that, ever. You know, not even when I've lost a family member to death. It was a whole different sort of feeling, you know.
This is your daughter you're talking about, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that's normal.
And I know it was so unexpected too, you know. It hit me like a fucking baseball bat around the head, you know. And so anyway, I'd relapsed, mate, and I'd been awake all that night, and I was sitting on the couch just like fucking kill me. I was done with life, you know. And the next thing, bang, bang, bang on the door. And we live in an apartment block, so there's a security door down the bottom which you've got to buzz through to get through to our staircase, you know. So whoever it is has got access through that door. So bang, 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 and I'm fucking freaked out. Shit, hide the drugs, hide this and that. And Braiden Tonks, it's the police. Like, I was like, fuck, and then boot, and they've booted the door in, and three big muscled out coppers have come through the door, mate, and you know, you would have thought that I'd murdered my ex. I had no idea why they were there. But the way they threw me over the couch and the knee in the head and they ripped my arms up behind my back like I'd done something so horrific. I hadn't done anything, mate, but I was just worried sick about my daughter, you know. All I'd done was consistently call her to try and... I didn't know it. There was nobody else out there looking for my fucking little girl in the system, you know. I felt like I was the only person on this planet looking for her. But on that note too, I just want to say too, you know, there's some heavy DV laws in Queensland. You know, it's the strictest laws in the country, and rightfully so. I do not want to take that away from any victim of domestic violence in that state whatsoever, because there's been some horrific things happen to some women by some horrendous men, and there's been laws put in place for a reason. What I do think needs to happen though is there needs to be an inquest into treating each case individually, because I was treated like I had murdered this woman, you know. Mate,
So tell us, because so it's my understanding she's put a DV claim against you.
the police had, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, she's reported a DV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
She gets a DV payment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is something I've known about the last few months.
Mm.
Because it's been brought to my attention. Couples are doing it.
Mm. Yeah. Brought in the system.
When
And
the wife is making a claim against the husband, right? She'll get an AVO out on him.
Mm-hmm.
He'll stay living in the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they'll get a $25,000 payment.
Yeah, wow.
So she gets her payment and then rings you to say what?
Yeah, so we were talking about this in the car on the way here,
Yeah.
eh? So this was before... so just to touch on... So yeah, the police had taken me... Just going back to my story, because this leads into that.
Yeah.
So going back to... The police had come and arrested me, taken me to the police station, locked me up for the night, because there was a protection order in place already from when, you know... So I'd breached that. And at that stage, they took my phone off me, you know, and everything was in my phone. I had no idea the police were on their way to get me. I had all our conversations, everything in my phone. So they'd locked me up in the Southport Watch House for the night. Took my phone. I was bailed the next morning. You know, went up to court barefoot in a singlet, looking like I said, I'd relapsed the night before that. So I looked like rat shit, Joey, and I was taken up to court barefoot in a fucking singlet, bailed, let out. I went home that day, I reckon within about 2 hours. So, when they took me to the cop shop, that's when they charged me with coercive control and about 10 breaches through, so that when they'd given my daughter back to her, it was part of her breaching me, so she'd obviously give them her phone, and they'd got a bunch of stuff out of her phone. So there was 10 breaches of the DVO there, as well as a coercive control charge. Back to the story, I was locked up, let out, bailed the next morning. I went home. I was home for about 2 hours. Bang, the coppers had come through the door again, done the same thing and arrested me again that next day. This time because they'd had my phone. So throughout that day, they'd gone through my phone, gotten everything that they didn't see in her phone, you know, and and then taken me back to the station again and locked me up, charged me with another 13 breaches and a stalking charge. So the stalking charge, the nature of that was all them times I tried to call her over that period where my little daughter had been taken, you know, and locked me up, and I didn't think I was getting out that time, you know. I hadn't only breached the DVO, but it was breach and bail as well this time. So anyway, they let me, I went up to court again the next morning, miraculously got bail, you know. I was really, really blessed that day to be able to get out. Anyway, I went home. I reckon 10 minutes later, my housemates come barging through the door, and he's like, bro, have you seen you're all through the media? You know, you're looking at 14 years jail. I was like, what? Like, what? Give me a look. And, mate, I read this article and, you know, it was big block letters, Gold Coast podcaster, charged with coercive control, facing 14 years prison. I was like, what the fuck? I read this article that didn't even mention we have a daughter. You know, I was just framed to be this. And they used my podcast against me and stuff as well in this article, you know, like just through some of the notorious criminals that I've interviewed. And like they really used it against me, like, you know, tried to say that I'm associated with an OMCG gang in Queensland. I don't even know one OMCG member in Queensland, you know. That was my past life in Tassie, you know. I was part of a club down there. But anyway, things sort of smoothed over. Going back to what we were talking about in the car, things sort of smoothed over. You know, a few weeks went by. She started to let me see my daughter again. I was having her for a few days here, and she was coming down, staying at my house. We were sleeping together. We were, you know, I felt like I had my family back. You know, I'd just spent yo long without them. Felt like, although there's these orders in place, I've been charged with this, I've got court coming up, I felt like happy again. I had my family back together, you know. And yeah, little did I know that it was one weekend she called me and she's like, I've got, do you want to come and stay in a hotel with us in Surface? It was like a penthouse, just as a family. I was like, what, really? Like, she said, yeah, I've booked it for a couple of nights over the weekend, like come and spend it with us. And I was like, fuck yeah. You know, like, little did I know though, Joey, she had gotten however much it was payout through DV, which, you know, I haven't even had my say in court leading up to this. So I've pleaded not guilty to fucking everything, bro, because I ain't guilty for any of it. No coercive control. I'm no fucking stalker. You know, everything they plastered me out to be in the media, I'm contesting against, because I'm not this obsessive, controlling fucking ex-partner that tracked his partner's location down to stalk her. Like, no, I'm a fucking overly protective father that has watched his daughter be neglected multiple times throughout her life through, you know, her mother's drunken antics, and that has been, you know, extremely involved in his daughter's life from day one, you know. Sole parent at the beginning, you know. I taught her mother everything about how to change her bum and how to feed and all that stuff, you know. First time mother at 30. I'd been a father for 12 years at this stage, you know, plus had a little sister at 12 years old. Like, I've babies in my life forever. I'm a brilliant father. But yeah, so back to the story. I went and stayed in this hotel with her. Little did I know she'd paid for this fucking penthouse out of her escape money. And fucking, you know, what coercive controlled woman invites her perpetrator to a penthouse that she's funded with her escape money? Tell me how the fuck I am guilty of coercive control, you know?
Look,
do you sort of get where I'm going?
Absolutely. And it's not just DV, right? There's a lot of schemes, government programs that people are rorting.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Fucking oath.
And the DV system is a shambles.
Definitely.
But again, I want to make it clear, you know who my heart breaks for? It's not just
Darcy.
the men, right, that go through it. Then you got the children that are the real victims. Right, they're the ones that they're
the main victim, Joey.
Yeah,
it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit.
They're breaking families, right? And so I've got a question. You're her father.
I am.
You got done for stalking because you smashed your ex-partner's phone with phone calls, trying to get a hold Trying to
make
get information on your daughter.
trying to make sure she was safe
Okay, so
because I'd witnessed nothing.
so is there an
other-
avenue? Like, so when the courts say to you, right, you got no contact, you're not allowed to call. But if you want to check up on the welfare of your daughter, you need to do A, B, C.
I've
Is
got
there like a pathway?
no only through. So part of the only way I can contact the ex solely for my daughter is through fucking CPS, bro. And now let me just touch on too the CPS branch, so Child Protection Services, docs, whatever you want to call them, branch where all who was in charge of this case. There's a major, what's the word? They're being looked into for all their bullshit. Like,
So the employees, the workers that are there, right? You're also dealing with people that are bringing their own traumas, their own personal opinion to work.
yeah, either that or whether it's their own traumas or whether they've never experienced, whether they're even parents.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're
But
just
for example, if your case manager doesn't like you,
yeah.
you're dead.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And
You're finished.
you know, let me just touch on too the main police officer the police officer that I'm up against. I think it's best I don't say his name, but all my affidavits, everything like that, it's Braiden Tonks versus Constable da-di-da, you know, and
He's got it in for you.
he was from Tasmania originally.
So you're saying that he knows of maybe your
I'm-
father
And me,
and you?
I don't know, but it's pretty coincidental, isn't it, that I've been treated the way I have by somebody, and I was pretty heavy in the system in Tassie. You know, I'm 6'5", Joey. I'm covered in tattoos. I have stretched earlobes. I stand out.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You know,
And Tassie's a small community.
very small. There's 500,000 people.
Yeah.
The whole of Tassie. You know, you don't just know somebody, or if you don't know them, you've definitely heard of them or know their extended family. You know, and my family was pretty well known down there. Let's be honest. And like I said, me physically, I stand out. Once I was in the system in Tassie, once you've been in with the police in Tassie, and they never forget you. You know, and through some of the things that I'd done in Tassie, and you know, part of a notorious club and things like that. Like this whole part of the reason why I got the fuck out of there, bro, to start fresh, because I just could not become anything from after being in the system down there. Like,
So another point I want to make, these false allegations, right? These fraudulent claims where the government are paying these so-called DV victims. These women don't understand you're actually hurting the real DV victims.
yeah, it's taken from them.
You're taking away from what they've gone through.
100%.
Right,
100%.
The whole system is broken.
It is, bro. It is.
And something must be done, because there's women out there dying, bro,
Oh.
at the hands of scumbags through real DV cases where a simple piece of paper, you got to be 100 meters away from her. You can't call her.
That's what's on me. Yeah.
But really, their life's in danger.
Yeah. Yep. What's 100 meters? You fucking throw a rock 100 meters.
Yeah.
Like,
But then there's false claims. And again, Braden, I'm taking your word.
yeah.
Right, someone out there's going to say, mate, there's three sides to the story.
Oh, 100%.
And
I'm just truthful and I just speak it from my eyes, brother. 100%, you know? Like,
sorry, bro, if my daughter's taken away from me, I'm going to do everything I can to know that she's okay.
thank you, Joey. That's exactly what I've done. And now I'm to the point, brother, where I don't know where they are. She's taken off with her. I don't know where the fuck they are. I'd like to think that her mother's off the drink. You know, I can only imagine the trauma her mother would have went through, having her forcefully taken from her. Not just my daughter.
So just to give people an idea, do you want to, and I'm putting you on the spot here, do you want to talk about that, what you told me in the car about that night you came home and you heard your daughter crying hysterically in the distance?
you know, part of my order, Joey, is, and this has resulted in all my social medias being restricted. You know, I've got over 80,000 followers across, as a collective, across my platforms. It's only recently been varied, the order, so I can't speak about her mother, my daughter's mother, online at all. So I can't really go deep into and say that story that I told you. I mean, that'll all come out once the order is over. But I think I got to keep my cards close to my chest at the moment, because I'm still very, very well in the middle of it all.
So,
but let's just say I witnessed a lot of neglection, bro, over the years, just through her being drunk and, you know, not being to the level that she should be as a mother.
Where to from here, Braiden, for you?
Honestly, brother, this is what I wanted to touch on, okay? And I'm so proud of myself over these last few months and pulling myself off drugs alone. And, you know, I've never been to a rehab. I've never done a detox and anything like that. I'm a very, very strong will-powered individual, you know. But I've always used a relationship or like a partner or kids or whatever as a reason to.
So I was just going to say, Braiden, and I'll say this with all due respect, yeah? And it's... Look, I got to agree with you. You are very strong-willed to be able to come off it cold turkey, no help, no other drug to assist, right? Because I've firsthand seen how hard it is and how violently it sucks someone in, right? But I also got to disagree with you, because you're not that strong-willed if at the drop of a hat something doesn't go your way. It was the first thing you turn to.
Yeah, no, you're 100%
and I say
right.
that with all due respect.
Yeah,
Braiden,
I respectfully take it on board, 100%.
Because you're doing amazing work. You're doing amazing work. And let me tell you, you know all you're doing? When you do that, all you're doing is giving your ex...
ammunition.
The ammunition, you know, or even the power to say, see, that's him. That's who he is. Right?
Exactly, yep.
You're playing into her hands.
100%.
Right? And I think you are better than that.
Definitely. I know I'm better than that, brother.
Yeah?
Yeah. So let me just take you back to... This is how dark it got, Joey, and this is how I feel like I've never been able to do it alone. Like I said, I've always had a reason or a cuddle buddy to cuddle me out of it, you know, like. But this time I've done it all on my own. I'm still living in the fucking house, bro, where it all began. Everything I look at in that house is a memory. So that's a trigger on its own.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? My daughter's toy corner hasn't moved. It's covered in dust. I just can't bring myself to fucking move anything, you know? All her Christmas presents, everything is still there. But it got so dark one time. This was right at the arse end of my last relapse, you know? This is, I feel like, what got me clean on my own was, this is deep. And I say this with nobody, I don't want any sympathy or nobody to feel sorry for, anything like that. I just want to tell you straight, and just so you get a bit of an idea, right? I'd made the decision that I was going to end myself there a few months ago. And how I know I'd made it was real is because, like, let's be honest, I've used it as an excuse in past when I've been I'm going to kill myself. Like, you know, I'm not going to lie. I've used it as an excuse. This time, I hadn't spoken to a single soul for 3 days. I hadn't spoken to my housemate, my mum, anybody. I had come to the conclusion that I was going to, you know, I had a vial of GHB, Frank, they call it in Queensland, you know, G, juice, whatever. Had about 50 or 60 milligrams of it, and I'd come to the conclusion that I was going to use it with a bunch of medication that I'd been put on, you know, heavy medication. I'm on a mental health plan. And I was just going to take a heap of that, shot the bottle of that, and just go to sleep, you know. That was... And I knew that it was real, bro, because I felt like a sense of relief and I wasn't scared. You know, cut a long story short, I'd switched all the lights off this night, went to bed, went to go to my bedroom to do it. brother, I sat down on my bed and I sat on the TV remote and it's turned something on YouTube on the TV in my bedroom. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something preaching God on, oh, bro, I'm getting goosebumps. And like I'd literally sat on my bed, ready, I had everything lined up in front, ready to do it, brother. I was seconds away from you know, taking all this stuff and hopefully going to sleep and not waking up. That's how broken I was, you know. When I sat on, it just so happened my ass cheek turned the fucking something on YouTube, you know. It made me jump. Like I looked and it was like, my whole life just flashed like, what are you doing, you dickhead? I tipped the fucking GHB out. I haven't even taken any medication since. I'm completely off all my medication, everything. You know, I was on Valium and antidepressants and antipsychotic. I was on all that bullshit. Enough medication there to do myself in alone. And yeah, I pulled myself off everything. And I don't know what, I have to be here for a reason, bro, because from that day, I didn't touch drugs again. Like I said, I pulled myself off the medication. And I've done nothing but put one foot in front of the other now. I've sat down, I've gone through. So the whole thing with my ex is over a 3-month period between November and February. And I've gotten a whole timeline there. I've lined up all my evidence, photos, videos, messages, this and that to defend myself for my non-guilty plea. I'm wrapped, man. I'd all just, you know, when I'd made that decision that I was going to, you know, end things, I had no defence story in my head. I had court coming up real quick. I was just thinking, what do I do? I hadn't even organised a proper lawyer, anything, you know. And since that night, which was about, roughly about 10, 11 weeks ago, bro, I've done nothing but rebuild, you know. And all glory to God. That's all I can say.
Amen.
Yeah. Why? How did that just happen at that perfect time? You know.
That's
I haven't told that publicly before either. You know, I've been thinking about doing a social media reel about it, and I thought, no, I don't want the people to look at me and say, like, look at him.
Look, they're gonna say, people are always gonna talk.
But I thought, what a good,
you know that.
What a perfect platform to share that on, though. You know?
Absolutely. And something I want to make clear to people is there's a lot of cries out for help, right? So when someone says, I want to kill myself, typically they don't, but they're asking for help.
Exactly.
But they'll say it once, they'll say it twice. They might say it 10 times, right? And I beg everyone out there, even if you feel like it's attention seeking,
that's the word I was looking for, attention seeking.
Try to help, right? Try to help, because you just never know when they've had enough.
Exactly,
You
brother.
just never know when they say, right, I'm ready now, how dead set they are.
That's right.
Because my cousin fell into that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And he never got believed. After many cries out for help. And the one time he said he was going to do it,
You did it.
he was gone the next day.
Brother, I'm so sorry to hear that. My best mate, it's be 2 years on the 6th of August this year, and I don't know if you've seen, but I've organised a big mental health beach walk with
I saw that
with
post. Yeah.
Big Al. I walk for Men's Mental Health. Shout out Big Al. He's coming up the Gold Coast, and we're walking from the Spit all the way to Burleigh Head. It's about 18 kilometres. But, you know, just on the end of that falls on the day of Big Al's father taking his own life. But it also falls on the week of it'll be 2 years that my brother, bestest mate in the world, did the same thing. Was putting it all over social media. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to jump off the bridge. And, you know, if you're from Tassie, you know the Tasman Bridge is a very notorious bridge for suicide. There's 7 to 10 people a week do it, you know. Same deal. I got to the point where I was getting so annoyed with seeing these stupid fucking posts on Facebook and, you know, that I just ignored it. I ignored it. Then I woke up. I didn't wake up, sorry. I got a phone call from my brother because my little brother lived with this guy for the last 15 years. Housemates. My little brother had ignored his phone calls, seen that he was ringing that night. Put his phone on the bedside table, and I wake up and realise that he'd jumped off the Tasman Bridge. So I feel you with your cousin, brother.
It's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. It's a problem in this country.
Huge problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of people not doing well, Tonks.
Especially with men, bro, and just men alone. I take nothing away from women whatsoever, but just on the whole parental alienation thing, just men alone from that one thing, alienated from their kids. The statistics say, now this is all over the internet, the statistics say 28 men a week just in Australia take their lives from being alienated from their children. What's that, 4 a day just in Australia for that reason?
Yeah.
If that ain't saying there's a fucking problem, that there is somewhere broken somewhere in that system.
The whole system is like we had Sabrina on.
Beautiful story. I watched it last night.
Yeah. And that's, mate, it's happening to women too.
Yeah.
Right?
I know. Really opened my eyes, that podcast. Fucking oath.
But I still can't understand how the government thinks that a broken family, right, where the government comes in and plays God and says, right, we now decide that these girls or boys, they don't need a father.
Yeah.
They don't
fucking putrid.
They don't need a mother. You have them all to yourself. They don't need their father or their mother in their life. I'm struggling to understand how that helps or benefits our children.
It just traumatises them, man.
Right? Because let me tell you, the dynamics at my home, in my home,
currently
now,
yep,
yeah, with my 2 girls, I could not picture for a split second keeping their mother away from them, because I see the connection they have with their mum.
Yep.
Right, and I see what my wife does for them. But then on the flip side, and kids know when they want dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll throw their mum in the bin in half a second.
Definitely.
Right, because now it's dad time.
That's right.
Right, for me to get what I want, I'm going to get that from dad. But then there's times where, and especially my youngest daughter, so loving and affectionate when it's my time.
Yep.
But when she wants mum and only mum.
Yep. I know those feels too. I was the exact same. Yep, 100%. With all three.
But I'm talking about my daughter now, but that's every child.
Exactly.
What are we doing to these children?
Exactly.
Tonks,
I know.
We're breaking them. We're setting up the neck, and these kids are our next generation.
That's right.
So instead of empowering the next generation, trying to keep this country in a stronghold, mate, we
are backwards.
Yeah, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, I know.
We're in big trouble.
Never in a million years, Joey, did I think I would be. I would experience it. I used to just hear about it and feel sorry for family, and now I'm part of it. I'm living it. Yeah. I'm still very well in the middle of it all. It's like I don't even have any more tears to cry, mate. I have literally cried myself to sleep so many fucking times just praying to God that this will come to an end. And I still believe it will. I still believe I will get my justice. If the man upstairs is real, then there is no reason why I won't get my daughter back, get what I deserve. Because like I said, mate, everything I've been alleged of, accused of, none of it I've been convicted of as such. And I'll fight till my death, mate. And I won't, I know in my heart what's happened. I know in my heart the truth. And I won't stop until it's heard. I really won't.
Mate, I wish you nothing but the best, Tonks.
Thank you, brother.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. And that's exactly what it is. This is your story.
It is.
I know there's, and you know this yourself, being, in a content creator, podcaster, people come at you. People have things to say.
You just got to have that thick skin, brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mate, look, I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm sure we're going to be connecting in the near future.
We are, Joey,
with
because
some things.
you're coming up the Gold Coast and I'm going to have you on this season, bro.
Mate, I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
it's happening. Let's make it happen.
We definitely will, my brother. We definitely will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joey. I appreciate it, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the Reset Podcast. Guys, if you are going through something, I need you to understand you're not going through this on your own. One thing my journey has taught me is my biggest support has come from people I don't know. So it's not about family. It's not about blood. I don't care if you look around and there's no one there, because I can guarantee you help is sitting in your phone. Just a text message to a random somebody.
It goes a long way, bro.
100%.
It goes a long way, especially a stranger.
Yeah.
100%.
And like I said, my biggest support has come from strangers, and when an absolute random that doesn't owe me anything, that doesn't owe me to tell me how good I'm going or how proud they are.
It's a good feeling, eh?
Mate, it holds so much weight. It holds so much weight. So please, I beg you guys, flick a message, and anyone will tell you, if you message in the Reset Podcast, you'll always get an answer. We won't leave you unread. Stay strong, Kings. And for our Queens, also, you're not in this on your own either. Until next week, this is the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Marroun.
No gas, new perspective. Reset.